Hey guys, welcome back to my sewing room. I'm Kelly over at Pick and Stitches, and today I want to walk you through how I like to make flying geese. So there's a couple of tricks, and there's, just like everything else that we do in quilting, tons of different ways that you can make these flying geese. But one of the ways that I like the best is these quilt in a day rulers. And I don't know if you can see, I'll try to take some pictures of these. I have two different sizes here, and these are the ones we're going to be using today. I also have the Creative Grids Flying Geese ruler, and I like this one too, but I find that I end up reaching for these quilt in a days over and above the Creative Grids just because that's what I'm used to. So let's jump right in and I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so today I'm going to be using this smallest ruler. I'm going to use the small corner, so our finished size is going to be 1.5 by 3, and that means I'm going to cut 2 squares to start. I'm going to cut one a little bit larger than the other, so I'm going to cut a 6.5 and a 5. So let's jump right on in.
All right, so for this one I do like to use, there's a easy Flying Geese cheat sheet available on the Fat Quarter Shop website. It's a free PDF download. I do like to start with these measurements, and it's a little bit larger than what's recommended in the paperwork that comes with it, but it just gives you a little bit more wiggle room, and since we're trying to make these so precise, I want to make sure that they look really good. The other thing I'm going to do that's a little bit different is I do cut these in half first. So we're going to go right sides together, and instead of drawing a line and making sure it's all perfect and lined up, I'm just going to go ahead and get corner to corner. So I've got this to where I can follow all 4 corners in the same line, and I'm just going to cut it in half. And I know generally I'm not a pinner, but in this instance I do make an exception because I don't want these to slide around. So I'm going to pin these. Thought my pen broke. That was weird. That one's gonna poke me. I'll move it when I start sewing. Okay, so I've got these pinned, and now we'll move over to the machine, and I'm just gonna sew right down the line. Everything else I follow exactly like the instructions are written.
Okay, so I've got my 2 squares cut in half with their 2 pins, and I'm just going to give it a 1/4 inch seam down both sides. Now that's too bright for you guys. Okay, now we'll do our other side. And you could sew right off the end of those. I just stopped it a little early. Okay, so now I'll take this over to the pressing station, and I'm just going to press those open. Okay, so as I press these open, I did press to the dark side, and don't let that confuse you. If you're making these, you always want to press to the larger square size. It just so happens that with the way I'm making these flying geese, they were my largest square to start. So now I've got my right sides. I'm going to put them right sides together, and they're going to be opposite. And as I'm lining them up, they are not going to line up. The seams will not nest. So I'm going to line them up, and they're going to look a little bit funky like that. So they will overlap, and that is totally okay. We're going to draw our line, and then we're going to sew from corner to corner this direction. So I'll throw a couple pins in it just because it's not the typical way you line things up, so it feels a little funny. And then I'm going to draw my corners because this is a little bit longer than my seam guide. And we're just going to go with our 2 lines and sew a 1/4 inch away like we've done so many other times. Okay, so I've got my 2 lines on there. I'm just going to sew down, and we will then cut those apart and press them open. Okay, so now I'm going to take this over to the pressing station and I'm going to cut those 2 sides apart for us. Okay, so first I'm going to set my seams. And I'll get my smaller cutting mat. Alright, so I'm just going to go right between those 2 lines. Doesn't have to be perfect because that's already sewn. Okay, and now because the next step is going to be to press these open, I'm going to want to press the back on one side one way and the other on the other side another way. I'm going to snip just to this line halfway in the middle so that my seams can flip-flop, but I'm not going to touch that actual seam line. So give it a quick snip, and then we can press again. So now I'm going to press this one towards my dark again. And this side I'm going to press towards the dark. So that way they're both laying in the right direction. Now we've got the other one to do. Okay, so again, I'm pressing towards the dark, and that only works because my bigger square was the darker square. So don't get confused if you made the bigger square the lighter square, because then you would be pressing towards the white. Okay, so here's where the magic happens. I like to use this Quilt in a Day. This is the small size, so I'm going to use the 1.5 by 3 today, and I'm just going to line this up with the inner part of the Flying Goose that I want, and that's going to give me the perfect 1/4 inch seam when I go to stitch this block in. And so I'm just going to cut it right across the top, and I'm going to get that one out of the way, and then I'm going to hit these other 2 sides. And now the last thing that I'm going to do, okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is line it up with this side. And I still have my line right on my corners. And I'm going to take the end of it off. And now I've got the perfect Flying Goose. I'm going to press that one more time and throw a clapper on it just so it stays nice and flat for me. Okay, so now we've got the other side. We're going to give this one a haircut on 3 sides. And then this last side. All right, so I'll finish up these last 2. Okay, so again, we've got our Flying Goose, so the point needs to be pressed a little better. I always like to double check my seams before I cut anything, just to make sure it opened all the way up. You can always fix it until it's cut. Once it's cut, you got to start over. Okay, so now on to our final cuts. I'm going to get lined up here. Thought I missed one. It sure is rainy out there today. It's a nice day to be in the sewing room, right? And just like everything else, there are so many different ways that you can come at these kind of projects. I just find that this is the one that is the most straightforward and gives me fast and accurate results. I definitely struggled with this block a little bit when I first started sewing, and when I found this method, things just seemed to kind of come into place. So now we've got our 4 flying geese. So you could put these all in a row and make a cool block with them in that fashion. These I actually am going to make a 6-star block out of. So I have my central block now, and I'm just going to add these star points all the way around. And so we'll get those and start to sew them together. Okay, so just in case you wanted to see how I'm going to finish this out, I'm just going to make a quick star. So I'm going to sew across my rows one at a time, and I just like to chain piece these. Again, if you love to pin, please feel free. Actually going to spin it around, make it easier so I don't have to move things to the bottom side. And I just like to pin them because these are change pieced and I want to make sure I don't get out of order. This is a pretty simple block, so I certainly don't have to, but it's a kind of force of habit at this point. And then once you've got those all set up, you can just zip, zip, zip. And we're ready to go over and press. Now I am going to double check this before I go over and press it. Just make sure I didn't cut off any of those points. Those look good. So I will press that open and we'll be right back. Okay, so I decided to press these where the star points are going to be pressed out. This star point is pressed towards the center and this star point is pressed out. That way when I get to putting the rows together, they're going to nest. So I'm just going to take the top row to the bottom row And you can see how you can push those seams right there together and then throw a pin in it, and you know that that's going to line up really nicely. We'll do the same thing on the other side. And I'm just going to do both sides at the same time here. Unthreaded my needle. First try. That never happens when I'm filming. Okay, corner looks good. Let's do the other side. All right, I will go press this and we'll be right back. Okay guys, so there we have it, a finished block. This is a 6-star block. It was made with 4 flying geese, and this is a method that I find to be fast and effective and helps me make better corners and better points. So I hope this helped. Okay guys, that wraps up my flying geese tutorial. We finished this block. This was a really fast and easy one. You could do an entire quilt out of this. I've done several with two-tone where this inside square is a different color than the outside points. You could even make the outside your color and the middle the white. There's tons and tons of variety with this block, not to mention all the times that you could just make straight flying geese, and they're always fun in a long rectangle on some of your more, not modern, some of your more fun quilts. Anyways, if you like watching these tutorials and getting caught up with what I've got going on, if you could like and subscribe, that will certainly help me out. And until then, I can't wait to see you next time.